You looked like a little steamboat.
Look at this situation. We have a fallen log that has a support point here and a support point here. And we want to make a cut here in the middle. If we just go and make a cut directly from above, in this situation, it's most likely that the chainsaw bar will get stuck. In most cases, when we're cutting trees, hooks, or branches, there are always two mechanical forces at play: tension and compression. When we say that the wood is under tension, it means the wood fibers are being stretched. And when we say it's under compression, it means the wood fibers are being compressed. This may sound technical, but it's really just common sense. Imagine this part of my wrist here. If I make this movement, this part of my skin is under tension, it's being stretched, and the underside of my wrist is being compressed. So it's working under compression, exactly the same with wood. That's the whole science behind it. In this example, we have to figure out where the compression is, whether the compression is on the top or the bottom. We see that we have a support point here and another support point over here, and most likely the mass is falling around there, carrying most of the load. So I'm going to put my hand here parallel to simulate the load that this log is receiving, which would tend to be like this with my wrist. That is, the top part would be in compression and the bottom part in tension. I'll show you again. Imagine that someone is sitting there putting weight on that part of the log. It would generate this movement, right? Compression on top, tension on the bottom. Now, the question that I think interests you is, how do you make this cut so that the saw doesn't get stuck? I'll show you right away. First cut, it always has to be on the side that's under compression. In this case, the upper side of the log for logs with a larger diameter. I like to make a notch on the top part, a sort of short V right here with a depth of about 1/3 of the log's diameter. For this case, since it's a relatively small diameter, it wouldn't be necessary to make a notch. Simply with a cut that goes about 1/4 or 1/3 of the way deep, and then a cut that comes up from below on the tension side, that would be enough. We're going to make the notch anyway because I'm interested in you getting to know it.
Cut notch.
And that's how the log turned out. Now we have another situation, a different situation, where there is also compression and tension, in this case, with the log hanging or cantilevered. In this way, the compression is now at the bottom, and the tension is at the top. That means that to cut this log, we should first make relief cuts down here on the compressed side and then finish from the top for this diameter of log. I don't think it's necessary, but in any case, it's good practice. Sometimes logs, even of this diameter when they're green, if we don't make this relief cut, what happens is that when we start cutting from the top, suddenly a piece of wood with bark is left uncut, and this piece tends to fall and split the bark in that direction. When we want to achieve clean cuts, especially when we're working in forestry and we don't want the tree to tear, it's good practice to always make this relief cut first and then the final cut from the top.
Tree trunks.
This hook It's good as an example of a cut without a relief cut so you can see what can happen. This tree is dead. It needs to be cut down, so we can cut this hook without any problem. And then we can cut that other hook with the relief cut so you can see the difference. That's exactly what happens when we don't make a relief cut. You can see that practically that whole section of the trunk is useless since it's split completely. Besides being extremely dangerous, especially if we're pruning at height, this is very easy to avoid. By making a simple notch here, as I showed you before, and then making the cut on the tension side. I'm going to cut this hook that's here. I'm not going to make a notch. I'm just going to make a cut. Release from below on the compressed side, and then I'll finish with the cut from above. You'll notice that the hook will fall relatively straight down. It won't tilt much before it falls. Here we have an interesting situation. This hook, which we intentionally cut incorrectly, ended up like this in a somewhat awkward position. And here, it's kind of hard to know what to do or where the mechanical forces are. I don't know how you see it, but here I tend to think, if we have a support point here and another support point there, which is still attached to the main trunk, I would think that we are in a load situation there, meaning tension pulling at the bottom and compression at the top. Let's do the test. Let's always make the cut on the compression side. That is, in this case, we have to make a cut on top, and then we'll finish with the cut at the bottom. In this case, we're not going to make a notch, just a relief cut on top, and then a second cut at the bottom. Let's go slowly, no rush, watching how the tree moves. To see if we get the compression and the tension right. Indeed, we were right. The compression was up. This one felt like this, but this one, since it was still attached to the main trunk, was left hanging. Now we know what we have to do. In this case, we can cut directly from above or make a small release cut first, then the final cut from above. Well, I send you a hug. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye-bye.